All right, we are going to go over your second task for today, which is going to be reading an excerpt called Sleep Story from the book that we've been taking passages out of, Home of the Brave. Just quick reminder, as you've heard me say a bunch now, main character Kek is a young boy who's a refugee in America from Sudan. Today you're going to specifically focus on his cousin Ganwar, who was also a refugee. He's a few years older, so you'll be hearing that name as well. So what you're going to do today on the next slide, there is a link to the passage called Sleep Story. You are going to pull that up and you're going to give it a read through. Side note, it's awesome because it's like in a good and really sad way. Sorry to depress you. Anyway, you're going to read Sleep Story, and then after that, you're going to go back and you're going to look for text evidence that gives you an answer to this question. So this is like our guiding question for the whole lesson. What is the most significant way in which Ganwar impacts Kek's life? So notice that the question is not, does Ganwar impact Kek's life? It's, what's the most significant way he does so? So just based on that passage alone, and you could also take into account some of the other things that we have read with Ganwar in it, in what way does he most significantly impact Kek's life? I gave you a quick reminder on our slides after that about how to explain evidence, because really when you boil it down, that's going to be your task today, is to choose some evidence that gives you an answer to that question about Ganwar, and then you have to explain it well. So people who were on the call yesterday, we looked at, and if you read the slides, we looked at this example about finding Nemo and having determination and perseverance. I added these arrows afterwards thinking like, okay, let's make sure that they understand that it has to be connected directly back to the theme statement. So I highlighted, and we did this together if you were live, highlighted all of the words that were either synonyms or the exact words from our theme statement in that color. And then I went back and I added the arrows. A couple of them I put in blue because they were kind of in the middle. So look how directly and how many times I'm referencing those key words from my theme statement. That's what you guys are going to need to do. So you're always going to use your answer words. In this case, it's not a theme, but whatever your answer is to the question, your one sentence answer, words that appear there should be appearing over and over again, or a synonym in your explanation, because that's what you're explaining. The second step to explaining evidence is you have to figure out whatever your quote is, and I'll get to the quote part in just a minute. You have to figure out what is your quote doing for your answer. So I gave you this list of words, same as yesterday, that you can use. Is the quote that you've chosen, is it supporting that theme statement? Is it demonstrating it directly? Like this quote is dead on explaining and showing my answer, or is it maybe just developing it? Like it's showing partially what I'm trying to say, but you would need more. So you're going to choose a word to use to describe your quote that you're using, and you'll have to circle it there. So from there, it's going to tell you that you're going to switch to our student slides for today. It's called Ganwar Analysis and Sleep Story, and you'll see it's not due until Wednesday. So you have tomorrow and Wednesday. There's a reason for that, which I'll get to in a little bit, well, probably on the next video. So when you pull up these slides, our guiding question again is at the top. What is the most significant way in which Ganwar impacts Kek's life? You're going to type just a one sentence answer in here, and I want you to be really thoughtful and specific. So what is the most significant way Ganwar impacts Kek's life? You have to take all the information you've been given and figure out a specific answer here. Just like how our theme statements have to be specific, all of the rules that our theme statements follow, your answer needs to follow as well. Then you're going to have to prove that your answer is correct. It says you need to find 3 pieces of text evidence. You can either just pull a quote straight out of the text, or if you can specifically paraphrase, that will work too, that support your answer. Okay, so if my answer were, this is always my example, if my answer were the most significant way Ganwar impacts Kek's life is that he introduces Kek to a puppy that makes all the difference to him. Obviously, that's not a thing. There's no puppy in the story. I have to find 3 pieces in the text that show either Ganwar giving Kek a puppy or how it positively impacts him. So 3 of the best pieces of evidence you can find to support whatever your answer is. The next slide is that same one that I showed you on the explanation side, just as a reminder for how to explain your evidence, because that is the task. That's really what I'm looking for and what we're practicing. So just a reminder for you. The 4th slide is where you're going to explain your answer. So this is where you're going to throw some quotes in here. So it says you're going to copy your answer about our guiding question, how Ganwar impacts Kek's life. We're going to copy it, paste it at the top of the slide, and then you're going to answer and explain that. So you're going to throw in your text evidence. You're going to be constantly connecting your explanation to your text evidence back to the most important words in your answer that you have above. If you need an example, side note, you can always pull up the example from Monday's slides, which have the Finding Nemo one that I wrote, and I can also put on another one. After that, I'm going to tell you that you have to stop as a reminder to yourself. Did you use your answer words often in your explanation? Did you directly state what your quote is doing for your answer? And then did you embed your citation correctly or at all? So you need to cite the author, which we've also been practicing. Every time you use a quote, got to cite it correctly. Guess what? After I make you go back and check for that, I'm going to have you do this same thing that I did with my example. So you're going to have your answer on slide 4. You're going to copy and paste that exact same answer into a new slide. And you are going to be highlighting in one color one of your important words. And anytime you see that word or synonym of it in your text, you're going to highlight that same color. If you have another important word, you're going to do a different color highlight. Anytime you see that word or a synonym for it, you're going to highlight that color. And then you are going to have to go in and add an arrow to show and point directly to the word. You guys, this is because this is a big thing that we struggle with a lot of times is the question you're answering, we tend to stray from actually answering that question. So if you have to highlight and literally point to the words in your answer, that's like a check for you. If yours doesn't have tons of arrows like mine does, you better go back and revisit, okay? So the arrows explain it there. The only other thing is you're going to highlight and circle whichever your key verb was in your explanation of what those quotes are doing. So mine was demonstrating, there's the whole list. One last thing, this is just kind of like sum up of that whole thing. There's a sliding scale here of how positive or negative you think Ganwar's presence is in Kek's life. And again, you're just making these determinations based on this one text that we read for today. So just based on that alone, you're going to move this arrow to wherever you think. If you put it at the top, it's that Kek is extremely lucky to have Ganwar in his life. He would be like very significantly negatively impacted without him. The bottom side is the opposite, that Ganwar has an extremely negative impact in his life. You get it, okay? So you're going to move the arrow. And then lastly, you're going to explain why you placed the arrow where you did. So it is clear that Ganwar has blah, 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 whatever rating of an impact on Kek because, and again, notice how we just keep coming back to supporting your answer. So you have to be able to prove whatever you're saying and back it up with some evidence here, okay? This paragraph on slide 4, where you're just providing an answer to the question itself, this is going to be a long one, right? So this was the example from Finding Nemo. You have to make sure you're fully supporting your answer statement. So this one's going to be kind of long. This one on slide 7 does not need to be, notice the box size doesn't need to be nearly there. Like just tell me whether you think Ganwar has a strong positive or strong negative impact on Kek's life and kind of briefly why. Once you get there, it's going to remind you that this is due Wednesday I'm purposely giving you some extra time because I know that if you do a nice job on this, it will take some time. So use your time to do it well. You will turn it in before midnight on Wednesday when you're finished.